There we go. All right, so let's talk about some capital title in zipForm. I've already turned on your office. So from there, what you'll need to do is turn on the integration for your specific account. I can only turn it on so that the office is enabled. Each individual user does need to go through the steps to turn it on if they choose to use it. So in order to do that, you come and log into zipForm, go over to Me, Profile and Settings. Settings. This is the familiar area where we link the DocuSign accounts. If you scroll down, you'll now see, third from the bottom, Title Integrations. Flip that switch to turn it on. And then set your branch office. So I believe you will all be using Clarkston. That sets your default. Go up to the upper left and make sure you hit the green Save button. If you do not hit that Save button, it will revert to off. Next, you will turn on your notification settings. They are still fine-tuning these notifications. You may get extras. I haven't had anybody complain that they're not getting them. I have heard that they're getting too many. When I scroll down, I'm not seeing it. Hold on. I think I'm going to log out and log back in. See if maybe something has to catch up with turning it on. I don't usually have that problem, but you never know. So let's try it. May just need to reset because I did some maintenance in this account before we started here. So let's go back to Profile and Settings. We'll click Settings first to make sure that that did turn on. Yep, Title Integrations. Let's go to Notification Settings. We should, yep, there it is. Scroll to the bottom, and there they've all appeared. I did have them on previously, so they're still back on. But anytime an order is sent that has to do with your account, you will get a notification. Anytime title documents have been transmitted, you'll get a notification. Both ways here, we're talking both ways, and also receive notifications on title notes. So that's the chat feature within the integration. If a chat is sent or received and you have that on, you're set to be notified. So save that setting as well. And once it's saved, you're good to go to start using integration. You will start seeing the little widget in the upper right-hand corner of every transaction. You will see, let's open one that's already been opened or requested, and then we'll kind of go backwards. So this one right here had been requested and then it was canceled. That's why it's red. I have one that has been requested and accepted, and it's kind of a working file. I thought it was that same address. Oh, that one's canceled too. So let's go into one that has not been requested yet. When I open this transaction, it's very familiar. It's the same, summary screen that I'm used to looking at. This was a buy-side transaction, I believe. Yep, purchase. And when I look over here on the right, it says that title order is either opted out or not sent. So that's the default state of this widget. It just means that no action has been taken for title yet. And in that case, there's nothing you need to do if you wish to not use the title integration for that transaction. If you want to open a title order, given the fact that no documents have been transmitted to Capital yet, and they are not working on an open order for this file, you can go ahead and request the title order by clicking the button.
Can the agents do that?
Well, who does it in your office now?
No one. They let us know.
Okay, who orders your title though?
We do, but I just wondered, will the agents be able to do that themselves?
Once it's turned on for the agents, they will be able to do it.
They will. Okay.
There's a lot of responsibility that goes along with turning it on, namely duplication. So we'll talk about
Right.
that.
I don't want them to be able to do it.
You don't? Well, then don't tell them to turn it on. How's that?
Okay.
I didn't say that. So we'll get to that part in a moment.
Okay, I just wondered.
No, I don't know if you just saw what happened right there though. When I clicked that request title order button, all this was blank because it said Michigan, but when I changed it to MI, then everything was, everything is a bit, well, now it's backward. Come on. There we go. For some reason, when this says Michigan, it throws a little error. So MI is the preferred state. I don't know why. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's the foolproof answer to the question of why is my drop-down blank? So every time that I've had that question, we switch it to MI, it has fixed it every time. So let's just try to keep that in mind. So now that we've clicked on the button to request title order, you have some options. You can select an office, which we set our default office as Clarkston when we turned on the integration. And then there's this drop down of what kind of title am I ordering. I have this document right here. It's kind of the training document that goes hand in hand. I will send it to you after this call. And if you scroll to the top of the second page, it spells out every one of those types of orders and when you would be selecting that one. So we know that this one is a buy side. We're going to assume that we're doing a split closing and we're going buy side. Now, you do have two other options, mixed default title company. So if you haven't set your default before this point, you can go ahead and set that as your default. And here, do not create a title order. This checkbox is here not because you have to check this if they're not going to use title in the integration. It's here because in the past there was a pop-up that prompted them to order title, and they could choose to fill this out or check this box. So I say just go ahead and ignore that for now. They are going to remove it. As the program is enhanced, there will be a button there for adding your documents at this time. But right now, we're just going to say, okay, send a request to open title for this buy side only transaction to the Clarkston branch. When I hit confirm, it'll take a moment, but then it'll kind of open up title here. Oh, that happened pretty quick. It kind of opens up the order over here on the right. And all that you've done so far is request title. They have not acknowledged it yet. You haven't sent them any documents. You've just said, hey, we're going to open title. At the time that you ask for title to be opened, this is the information that is transmitted to them. So as long as these pieces of information are in the transaction, zipForm gets them. They also get these pieces and only these pieces when they're updated. So if the legal description were added later or changed at some point and title is open within this integration, title will get just a little blip saying, hey, a change happened in the transaction, and they will be notified that they need to pay attention to that change, whether they need an addendum that goes with it or just a notation needs to be made. That's between, the transaction situation, I guess, and title. However, they do get this information and only this information. So property address, legal description, sale price, the closing date if it's buy side. If it's list side, obviously that's not there. And then the parties to the transaction, lender, realtor, buyers, and sellers. In order to send title, or in order to send documents to the title company, you click Send Documents. Pretty self-explanatory at this point. And I clicked it 2 times, so it came up twice. And now you'll see this is very familiar. If this is your office, you would see the transaction template. So the documents should be, you know, in the little folders that we have designated, which in a perfect world, you know, that would be great, but they're not always there. So in that case, you do have the hierarchy of those folders that you can kind of click into and out of to go ahead and get those documents. And for some reason, it's not letting me click that folder. Well, that's not going to do. Well, let's open it again. So we see this folder structure now, and when you click on the folders, you can then open them up and explore what's inside. Since I want everything that is within the signed purchase docs folder, I go ahead and select all of them and then hit Send Documents. If there were other documents somewhere else, I could go back and then click into another folder. Let's say for some reason I need to send one of these. I can go back and then send all the documents at once. Those documents are transmitted not via email. They go directly from the zipForm transaction into RamQuest. So RamQuest is like the back office of Capital Title. And so there's no more downloading, emailing. There's none of that. No more third party, you know, we're not relying on another service to get documents over to Capital. It is from point A to point B in a straight line. And it does take a few moments. Those documents sometimes are big, but they do go. Documents sent to title successfully. They go best if you don't compile them into one PDF and make a giant PDF. If you send, you know, just like I did, click on each individual document and send them all at the same time, but as an individual document. They do go best that way. Once Capital receives this order on the other end, then, oh, look at that title order number. So they've already received it on their end and they've opened this. So now I have to tell them, do not process this file because it's a transaction. So in order to do that, I'm going to chat with a title representative. I'm shocked that they've already acknowledged this. That was really fast. Your normal turnaround time would apply for this. It's kind of the same thing. They receive things on their end at the same pace, whether it's email or through this integration. So I'm going to say, please do. Wow. Please do. Oh my goodness. Do not process. This is a training file. And then I'll sign my name. Now I'm signing my name because they like to know who's on the other end. And yes, when you look in kind of the documentation here, you'll see that the person logged in, that their name shows up. Some offices use generic logins. So if you're, you know, Val, say you're Ortonville admin or, you know, Milford admin, just like, you know, Jane is logged in here as Milford, they're not going to know who they should communicate with. So it's best to kind of just add at least first name at the end, just so they know when they're reaching out, who they're reaching out back to. But when they do answer, if you have your notifications turned on, you'll get that notification in your email, and you'll see the bell icon, that little one will show up on your bell. When you open this transaction, when you open up this transaction, then there will be a little one with the red circle right here over the chat. So there's lots of ways that you'll be able to kind of trace back and get back into that transaction for any documentation or messages kind of going back and forth. And realistically, that's the broad overview. Okay, so you can open title, you can send docs, you can chat. It's not real-time chat, it's more like an email feature back and forth, but it's nice to have it all kind of contained within this transaction and tied to that title order. Let's talk about request cancellation real quick. So the policy for request cancellation button is the same as the policy for document or transaction retention, the company policy. So when it's our listing, you retain title. You don't request cancellation even if a deal falls apart. The only way you would request cancellation on a list side is if you lose that listing and you're never going to get a buyer for it. And then on the other side of that token, when it's our buyer, if for some reason that deal falls apart, title follows the transaction address, not the person. So if a deal falls apart, you would need to create a new transaction within zipForm for the next transaction. Same thing with title. You would request the cancellation, well, send over the mutual release so they, so they see that they can process things on their end. So you send that mutual release within send documents. Then you hit the request cancellation and you send them a message saying, this deal is dead. Please process the mutual release and cancel the request for buy-side title. So those kind of policies just go hand in hand. There's nothing new for that. Duplication is likely the biggest issue that you're going to run into. And we want to avoid duplication for capital title as much as possible. On our end, it's some buttons. It's pretty, I don't want to say cut and dry, but it's pretty self-explanatory. All of you guys are pretty experienced here within zipForm, and there's really not much that could stump you other than that MI versus Michigan thing. I seriously think that's been my only question. Besides the fact that people in the beginning were compiling all of the PDFs into one big PDF and trying to send it that way, and it was failing. So those are literally the only two things that hiccups that we've experienced. But the duplication on capital title side is a huge deal. It is a manual process for them to compare what has been sent via email versus what has been sent via the integration. And that it takes a lot of time and some brain power. And then it takes time to reverse that. They can't merge files on their end. They have to decide, okay, are we going to, which file are we going to stick with? And so a lot of communication needs to happen in the very beginning here. If your agents normally order their own title, you should communicate with them. Let them know that this is available. Ask them if they want to use it. I don't know if you want to set, office-wide standards. You really should get with your manager and see how you want to handle it. This, like I said, it is definitely an option. It's nice to have the transparency to be able to see where the title order is. They can kind of see the status bar if they turn the integration on. Now, Bonnie, you said earlier that you order title and you really don't want your agents involved in ordering title. And, that's, you're not the first one that has said that. That's for sure. And because they do tend to click buttons too much, and the more we click those buttons, the more work we're creating for capital title. So if you choose not to have them attend the training at first, I understand. We will set up a training time for your agents and show them how to turn it on and explain the responsibilities that go along with it. Benefits for the agents, they can have their title commitments posted back into this transaction from capital, which is really nice. Currently, they get that email, and if they're on Gmail or whatever, then they got to sign into capital titles, IX or whatever that is, server, and then retrieve their email that they're getting from capital and then download the document and do what they're going to do. If they use this integration, turn it on, get their title documents published back in, They literally just appear in their transaction when they're ready. Currently, I do believe that they are doing both, meaning emailing and populating back into the transaction, just because some agents, you know, they don't like change as much as we'd like sometimes. So it's baby steps. It always is baby steps when we do change. It's very rarely a cold turkey. So the closing docs also, especially with COVID, that can be very helpful. They can populate closing docs, final packages, right into the transaction. Now, once a transaction is created, outside of zipForm, we can't go back and then pull it in. So, hi, Michelle, I'm glad you're here. I will send you the, I know you requested the recording, so I did record. I can't remember what I was saying. I don't know where I left off. Anyway, title documents can be published by them, or the email can go out. Closing documents can also be published back into the transaction. I believe you have to request it. It's not just automatically done. So I see that Jane has a question. Certain agents now who choose to send their docs via email to Capital and will note that when they submit their docs for approval. We would not want them using email with this being available. Correct. If you want to use this integration, they need to stop emailing. We can't do both. At least not in the beginning. So when it's whatever way the title order is requested, whichever way it's requested is the way you have to stick with it. So if it's requested via email, then everything's off the board for zipForm. If it's requested within zipForm and they email something over after the fact, it's not going to hurt anything. It's not the preferred method, but it's not going to hurt anything. So it's however it's opened is really what we have to stick with. And opening it in Zip is a little more flexible than opening it outside of Zip. Got it. Excellent. All right. So we already talked about kind of the policy of cancellation. We talked about the importance of please don't duplicate. And walk through a basic transaction. I can certainly revisit this and talk about it some more. I could go over it again, or we can just say, let's have questions, cut it off, and I can field questions if you guys have any after the fact. I just tried to use it a time or two. I like to follow up with agent training at least a week, if not 2, after admin training. So I will send this doc, like I alluded to earlier, I will send this doc to everybody after we're done. I could look at some dates for training. The 26th or 27th, if your agents would like training. Oh, it's available right now, Jane. You can use it now. I turned it on for your office right before our call. So if you go and do these steps, profile and settings, go to the settings tab. If you go do those steps today, you can begin using it this afternoon. So do you guys want to use it for a couple days and then get with me on when you'd like to set up training? I have a few days, the last day of this month, the last week of this month. And I have a couple available the second week of February. So those are kind of your 2 choices. Why don't you go ahead and use it a little bit, ask me all the questions you can think to ask, and we'll circle back around for a date. Maybe I'll schedule something tentative for around the 17th of February for all your offices. I think you're right. I think you should all talk to your managers after the call, just to see what kind of standards you want to set. And, you know, maybe you don't want to train them at all yet. That's perfectly acceptable too. I will say that I've been doing it in groups, like regional groups, because if I get 2 agents per office to attend, I'm lucky. There's very low interest so far. I think once admin begins to use it and the agents see the value, it'll be different. However, I'm afraid that's going to coincide with busy season of March. And, you know, I want to give them training opportunities before they get busy whenever possible. So that's why we're kind of doing it now. Anybody have any comments, questions? You guys are easy today, or you're busy. I don't know which. Hopefully both.
Oh,
All right. Well, yeah, it's not very difficult at all. But, you know, with that, everybody have a good day. Go ahead and turn it on. I'll send out the recording and a copy of that training document. If you have a test group of agents that you want to maybe, you know, get them trained, or that they're very tech savvy, zipForm savvy, you could absolutely, you know, have a little discussion with them and send them this training document. Just please stress the importance of no duplication for capital. That's where we get into any trouble at all. So have a good day, everybody, and hope to see you Friday on the admin call if I don't talk to you before.
thank you so much, Maureen.
Anytime.